So more talking about Shroud of the Avatar. I mean, you have a big team in Munich, about, I think, 200 guys.
Yeah, we got about 200 guys in Munich, and in Germany we're closing into 300 in total. We got a studio Northworks in Hamburg and Bright Future in Cologne. So altogether we're like about 280, 290 right now. We're still looking for a couple positions. And actually, Shroud of the Avatar, the team is going to be in Hamburg.
Okay.
The main reason for that is the executive producer, Stefan, is working with the Portalarium team, lives in Hamburg, and he wanted to stay there. And since it's anyway a location that we have in the company family, we decided why not, you know, and he's in Munich like every other week or so.
So how big is the team support on your side?
Well, we're still building it up right now, so we aim for around 5 people roughly that are dedicated to Shadow of the Avatar, and then the rest is, of course, all our teams that we have in the company. There's people in marketing right now, and actually for the marketing team, it's like the #1 priority to prepare our launch of Shadow of the Avatar.
So, are you still on time?
Well, this team is actually pretty good about being on time.
Believe it or not,
we haven't had any delay so far since we've been working together. You didn't have one before, and I know you're going to tell the story about the Mac version being 20 minutes late, right? So I stole that story. So, no, actually, the team has always been delivering on time, and that's something that's really great. They do an amazing job in you know, keeping track of what needs to be done and delivering on time. So that's not been one of our worries so far.
Miraculously for game development. Yeah, and I have to give kudos to Star Long, who was the producer director on Ultima Online as well. So a lot of the good things I get credit for not only go to the team at large, which is the case for all of us, but in my case, Star Long in particular, not just saves me or saves the project or, you know, that sort of thing, but also really just does a phenomenal job. You know, our team, we do monthly releases. We have released them exactly on time for 51 months in a row now, except this one time where a Mac version build failed and it showed up. It was published a few minutes late, but otherwise they're exactly on time. And so what we decided we would do is we would vary what was in the build, but not the date and time of the build. So if we have to push a feature out to the next release, we do it, but we always make the release on time. And we've been doing that for 51 months, and it works great. So we don't, you know, a lot of teams will go into long-term crunch to try to get something out. We've never done it. We have little mini crunches every month. You know, you have 10 days or so before the release. Anybody's stuff that's not ready, which is, you know, half the team probably, they spend that week working extra hard. And they either make it or they don't. The things that don't get pushed out of that thing. And then every week, Star releases to the full public. Here is exactly, everything is scheduled all out as to what months it's supposed to come in. If it didn't make it, he puts a line through it. If it's new things that we added in, he adds it in italics. And otherwise, it's a list of exactly what we plan to deliver, and it's generally delivered plus some extra stuff. And we do that month after month after month. And way back, we planned in about 30% of the total time is for emergent things that we think of along the way, or the community supports, or we just figure out we forgot. And that's worked for us straight through. Which doesn't mean we haven't had delays, because we have. We just haven't had them since we've been with you. Because we originally actually planned to make it in the year, but about the time we met, we realized we weren't going to be able to make it in the year, and so that's when we made it here at the end of the first quarter. But that's pretty good. So, you know, we've been much more accurate with this game than we've been with any other games. But I do want to mention one thing about your marketing folks. You know. When you decide to part with somebody, there are obvious strengths that we knew we would get. Their, you know, international business sense, their connection to all these markets, their big community, the ability to support all these different languages, the QA department, all those things we knew that we would get as immediate value, and one of the things that drove us to build this relationship. What we didn't know, because you don't really know till you experience it, is how good the marketing team would be and how much they would understand your game and appreciate it and know how to pitch it in a way that is as good or better than I might pitch it myself. And I'm a hard person to please on that front. I actually would say I'm critical of most marketing efforts of most marketing departments on most games, and especially on our own. And I think a pinnacle example of this came up, you know, early in Origin history when we had an internal marketing department, and we were doing this game. I think it was called Cyber Mage, and the author of it, you know, it was the debate was, you know, are these creatures, are they zombies or mutants? And in this case, they were mutants. They weren't zombies. And the marketing department built this whole campaign around the wrong term. and the wrong kind of archetype of what the creatures were, and it really offended the author, who was a freelancer at the time, that you guys clearly don't know my game. You're completely, your marketing department are not gamers. They don't get the game. I'm unhappy. And that one didn't end well. And so with that in mind, when we first sat down to work with the Travian marketing department, I was kind of curious as to what's going to come across that first volley. Is it going to be something, how much feedback am I going to need? How much grooming am I have to do? And by the way, I was prepared for, I think good marketing is hard to do. So I was prepared to have to put some effort in on our side to make sure they understood the vision of the game, because just playing it, you may not see it the way we see it. And incredibly pleasantly surprised that the very first presentation we got from your marketing team sat down and broke down the game into not only its correct essence, but articulated in a clearer, more succinct way than I would have ever stated it myself, and had with it a marketing plan of how do we take gamers who are not familiar with this new type of thing, this selectively multiplayer, how do we pull them in and let them know they can begin their life in playing as they would in a traditional role-playing game if it was offline, and how we can therefore then have them aspire to playing online with their friends, and having them therefore aspire to play online with more in a more open area, and have them aspire to even engage in the most threatening part of the game, PvP. And they wrote out their description of it, and their presentation of it was fantastic. And so it gave me a great deal of confidence that that their team is doing. We knew that they would do, and they are doing a great job for Shroud of the Avatar.
So was this extremely different to the old days of Electronic Arts, or so?
I hope
Were you really surprised about that? Because did you thought that would happen?
No, it came out well. I would have to say I guess I was surprised, because I expected at least to have to do some hand-holding through the process, and and I think your marketing people were just as surprised how little correction we made too, because it was good from their side. They're going to go in and they're going to like, hey, we've played your game for 12 hours versus 12 months or years, and so here's our take on what you're doing. Hope you like it, and I think they were
pretty close to your vision, actually.
Pretty close. They nailed it. So. And since then, the work, we've now been giving each other feedback, but it's all been to optimize and make it even stronger. And so we're just now beginning to see the fruits of that labor with actual visuals and text and things will be used in the marketing campaigns. But,
so how often does your team meet each other then in person?
What we try to do is as much as possible.
Parts of our meeting every day.
Yeah.
So by Skype and other formats, but we have formal meetings twice a week, but there's individuals meeting daily.
Yeah, there's definitely, so we use different communication channels. There's a Slack channel where everybody's talking all the time. There's video calls. And of course there's face-to-face meetings. When we actually decided to work with you, we had a bunch of people coming out to Texas. We sat there, we talked about everything. So it's important that you have this face-to-face time and can actually put a face to the name that you had before. Richard is traveling a lot, so sometimes it's kind of hard to get him into the same room, but he's always there somehow, by robot, virtually or physically, doesn't matter. So it's actually easier these days than it used to be in the past, and we have the similar challenge with the other team in Austin that I work with, and it's not really an issue with any.
And interestingly, just because we've been around for so long, some of the employees they have even here in Germany are people I've worked with in the past. So, it's there's a common thread that exists in both our companies.
So what is the target group actually for Shroud of the Avatar? This is something, when you say, we already had this Kickstarter campaign, we have our backers who believed in the game, and 51 releases, whatever, something like that.
51 months.
Said, yeah, exactly. And so, and I read something about right now, I think there was a press release, something saying it's March, end of March, there's something coming up, more or less final. So are you targeting all the backers also? Yeah, because I also wrote read about some whatever critics here and there. Did they maybe not understand the game 2 years ago, like your marketing team did understand the game now? Or is your new campaign or your marketing efforts targeting the new guys coming in, or what is your plan? Or
you named both groups.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you got it right. Which
they're
is
both important,
and they're both essential.
You don't want to disappoint the people who gave you like $2 million or something on Kickstarter and much more afterwards. So it's very important that you please these guys. But on the other hand, you also want to make sure that you not only please those guys, but you make sure you have a game that is something for a much bigger audience. And that's what we crafted the marketing plan together with the Portalarium team, because we want to make sure we have something that both those groups like. I wouldn't say one is more important than the other, because of obviously the guys who invested early on Kickstarter, they are influencers. They to some extent make their game, and some of them are pretty vocal about it. Rich and I sometimes talk about that. The guys who are the most critical of the game are usually
Often
the ones
the
with the biggest backers
and have invested the most time.
Yeah,
that's what's really weird.
It's what I saw on Steam. I was
1,400 hours and stuff like that played.
Well, I don't know if you've looked at our Steam marketing, but our Steam page literally says the marketing line is "Do not buy this game." That's literally what it says. First line: "Do not buy this game."
Yeah,
and that comes from this issue where what we found is, earlier, a couple episodes back, we talked about the word early access, and what we found that I think is a fascinating psychology thing to watch is the people that started playing during Kickstarter, they saw release 1 was what we called the chicken room. It was a room with a chicken in it, a chair, and a standing torch. And you could click on the torch and turn it on and off. You could sit in the chair and stand up. And if you walked into the chicken, it would go cluck, 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 and walk away. That was the whole game. There was nothing more to the game than that, the chicken room. And so obviously the people who played that did not expect much of a game, right? They knew it was the first release of just the prototype engine pieces. And so they were like, hey, look, something exists. Isn't that great? And the next month, they got not just a chicken room, but they got a whole village. They couldn't leave the village. There were actually some people just kind of scooting around in it. You couldn't talk to them or anything. You couldn't interact with anything, but it now was outdoors, a village in the sky. It was way better than a chicken room. And the month after that, now you can actually talk to all those people. So it's way better than just the village. And so those people universally got in the mode of, wow, it's getting better and it's better. Every month it's a candy store. It comes, I like it. However, then there's the next group of people that didn't start until, let's say, release 30. And by release 30, it sort of looks like a game. You can have some combat, but the UI is terrible. You can do some crafting, but it's terribly imbalanced. You might find one spell that works, and then there's a whole part of the rest of the tree that just hasn't been filled in, but it looks like it might work, so you can still try to click on it, and you're just frustrated that it doesn't work. The people who join us through early access through Steam are that group of people, because we weren't on Steam originally. We were just Kickstarter only. Once we launched on Steam, those players had a complete opposite reaction. Those players were frustrated. They were going, this game is broken. It doesn't work at all. That's terribly balanced. It's, all able to be was critical. And we're going like, well, of course it's critical, but you don't remember the chicken room? We've come a long way since the chicken room. And that's when we kind of shifted gears into we actually don't want people to buy it on Kickstarter. So it's something you can't really undo once you've opened that Pandora's box. You can't really put the lid back on it. And a lot of those people who do come in then upgrade a lot, so it's actually economically still worth it for us to be there. But we've changed our attitude towards trying to manage it and moderate it, because you can't moderate it. You actually can't argue with people.
Yeah, but you see a lot of warnings, like even if you join into the game, you see like, okay, be sure, really accept it. It's not a finished product, so you really hit everyone in the face. Like, okay, forget it, man.
But apparently that doesn't help.
But it doesn't help.
I know, because nobody reads.
It's and it's also something I kind of blame the market for that a little bit, because people are so used to getting games in early access these days that they expect a finished game. From like it or not, that's reality. People go in there, they get something very early on, and they believe it's something they can already have a lot of fun with.
They already paid money.
There's bugs in there. There's features that are simply missing. Well, and that's kind of an issue. And I think it's that kind of biggest challenge that we actually face together right now to get those people and tell them, hey, it's a completely different game now. It's something that we can be proud of together and market it to those people, to people who have been backers, to people who have been playing the game on Steam, even to the trolls on Reddit, and then to new people who sometimes, especially in European countries, haven't even heard of it so far. We've noticed in our analysis that we ran that in France, for example, which is actually traditionally like a big Ultima country, not a lot of people actually know about Shroud of the Avatar, and that is something good.
Well, in fact, we've been trying to measure that.
That helps us kind of open that market. If we were looking into the markets and we were seeing like, hey, everybody knows about Shroud of the Avatar and everybody's like super critical of it, then we're like, I don't know, that's going to be quite a challenge. But that's not the case, and that's good. So it's still a lot of work to spread the word and get people on board and so on. But I feel very confident about all the traditionally strong Lord British Ultima countries, because that is of course our core market.
Yeah, and we also still think that when you talk about Ultima players versus people who've never heard of it, we do this polling when we go do trade shows. Like we were talking about Razer earlier, so Razer periodically has us come, they need product to show in their hardware booth. And so we'll bring Shroud of the Avatar. And so the people that walk into there and see it and decide to come play it aren't coming because they know that we're there, right? They're coming because they're here to buy Razer hardware. And so if on all the monitors of things playing on Razer hardware, they come and play ours, we then ask them at the end, hey, you've decided you liked our game. Answer two questions. One is, have you ever heard of Ultima before? And the answer is about 50-50. Of people that self-select, and this isn't just here for the Razer booth, we do this at Comic Cons and everywhere we go. About half the people that are attracted to it have a history with Ultima, half have never heard of it. So that means 50% of the people there's a whole duplicate of people we can reach and have never contacted. And then the other question we ask is, before this moment, have you heard of Shroud of the Avatar? And it turns out in this case, whether they're an Ultima player or not, both groups, 80% of the people had never heard of Shroud of the Avatar before just seeing it right in front of them. And that's because 80% of the people aren't trolling Kickstarter and MMORPG.com and a few of the places that we're in, with the higher frequency. But again, most gamers, aren't seeking out that knowledge. They're waiting for it to come to them. They're waiting for a friend to tell them about it. They're waiting to see an ad somewhere. They're waiting for it to be an ad in a pop-up. And so we think that we've only, been even become known to about 20% of the self-selectable audience.
So I think we should talk about that way more tomorrow, when we take the second part of that. I want to say thank you to our sponsors up there, because we have sponsors like Zipsoft, like even Hamburg, because they were very crazy. Like, yeah, you're building up a studio now in Hamburg. It's like, yeah, it seems so, because they saw the advertisement that you're hiring someone in Hamburg.
Well, we've always had a studio in Hamburg. I mean, it's about 30 people working there. So
new team.
But so far we've only been doing development for our own games in Hamburg. But now we decided, like I said before, why not use that office and have the support team for Shroud of the Avatar, as I kind of call it, in Hamburg, because that's just logical,
right?
So let's talk more tomorrow in the next episode.
Absolutely.
Thanks.